All right, today I was watching a YouTube guy this morning. I wish I could remember his name. Maybe I'll mention him in the notes. But he did a good job. I actually like this guy. He doesn't have a lot of subscribers yet. He's clearly a certified financial planner. He doesn't hide that. But he did a good job of saying, "Hey, don't forget that things can go bad." And you got to admit, like, we don't tend to think that way. And even during COVID bounced back, not COVID itself, but the markets bounced back relatively quick. But things could go bad. So that kind of prompted me to do a couple things. I mean, Bolden has a scenario um, explorer. Let's see, what do they call them? I think they call them explorers. Yeah, they have an explorer, and we'll do that. We'll do the market risk explorer, and I'll show you what I did. But I still think it's a great exercise to sit down and kind of do it yourself. Because I don't know if Bolden's going to be able to do all the things that I would want it to do. Because it has numbers that it doesn't necessarily know how they would be impacted. Like, I have some investments that I know I'm not going to lose money on. I just know it. It's a fixed annuity. The only way I could lose money on is if the company went under. So I kind of did my own thing. So I'm going to walk you through that real quick. So I've got an investments video that went out, like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. So I used I just brought these same numbers in, except for what I did is they said, well, what would happen if I lost 50% in 1 year? Now, would we lose 50% in 1 year? Probably not, but we can model that in Bolden pretty easily. But I just kind of modeled what would happen if I lost 50% like right away, and essentially um, it, it came down 50% and then leveled off. And I'll show you why I'm assuming it levels off when we get there. So what I did is I took all my investments. Here they all are. You can take a look at them. Somebody corrected me. I had 529 here for my wife's investments, but it's not. It's a 403b. So what I did is I put them all down. And then I just said, what would happen? Which ones would I really have the risk of losing 50% at? So obviously, the 500 index, I could lose 50. The Fidelity total market could lose 50. NASDAQ could lose 50. My gold could lose 50. Now, I have a feeling if these things really tanked, gold would go up, but we're just going to go with it. My fixed annuity would not lose 50. It would stay fixed. My government fund would not lose money. It would stay fixed. My CD, fixed. My interest bearing savings, fixed. So those wouldn't be a problem, right? And so what I did is I said, okay, this is my total. And then my wife's 403b, hers is a mix. Hers is a little balanced. So I said instead of losing 50, maybe it would lose 40. Probably lose a little less than that. But let's just assume 40. So that would give me a total of this. So, so let's just skip this little income section here real quick. And then what I did is I went through, I listed all my expenses. And oh, by the way, expenses, cancel your cable. Even if you're not gonna cancel your cable. So I had Optimum in New Jersey, and at one point I was paying, this is a long time ago, like $100 a month. And then I called them up, said I was going to cancel. They reduced it down to 55 a month or 60 a month, something like that. Then 6 months ago, I called Verizon. Verizon got me down to 45 a month, and I put my Optimum on suspension for 6 months. Optimum comes back with, this is fiber, 300 megabits per second at $20 a month, and they gave me 6 months free. So and that's a 3 year guarantee. That's a 3 year guarantee on at $20 a month. Like, who would have thought I'm spending we went to Wendy's the other night, my wife and I, and spent like $22. We had a coupon on the phone for any say $5 on 20. But who would have thought that my monthly internet price using fiber optic at 300 meg per second would be less than one meal at Wendy's? So anyhow, do that. That can save you some money. So what I did is I went through, and I won't go through all these. You can just pause it and look if you're interested. I had a monthly cost and a yearly cost, and I just went through my Right Capital stuff. And I also, if you look at it in Right Capital, I also you can see how much I've actually been spending. And at this point, this year to date is pretty accurate. It's got quite a bit. I don't foresee any crazy expenses coming up in November and December that are going to rock my world. So I looked at that since that has my actuals, and I keyed them all in here. I actually forgot healthcare because healthcare isn't in that section. So I ended up adding healthcare back in. And then what I did is I said, okay, and how much is that a year? How much a year is that? I just multiplied by 12. Then I said, what are the areas where, what would I do if I went into emergency mode? Um, which could happen. And like I said, I'm all about the software, but sometimes like I think you should just take a step back, put something, just do a sanity spreadsheet on it and just make sure everything's okay. Because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes when you're just changing a few numbers here and there, and it's like, oh, you got a 80% chance of success. I don't know. I think you can get detached from the numbers. So, I wouldn't put anything complex in Excel. Like I certainly wouldn't do my whole plan in Excel. But for something like this, I thought it was really appropriate to jam it in Excel just as a like a sanity check. So what I did is I went through these. I said, hey, what were things I could take down? Charity, clothing, um, more charity, kind of charity. If I'm really screwed and I'm in trouble, I'm going to have to reevaluate my charity stuff. Entertainment could go down. Vacations would obviously go down considerably. I wouldn't even do those extravagant vacations. I may, but anyhow, oh, that's another reason in Boldin. I don't know. So I love hooking my accounts to Boldin. Because then I never have to go in and update them and stuff. And people had some good points about that. They said, but you should only update it once every 6 months or whatever, anyhow. But I'm looking at it a lot, so I like it to be updated. I don't look at it out of fear. I look at it out of fun. And but this is where you kind of get screwed because it would have been nice in Boldin if I could have just gone in manually and reduced my account by 50%. The problem is you can't do that in scenarios. The one thing that carries over in scenarios is your accounts. So I would have loved to have been able to go into Boldin and just say reduce it by 50%. Me reduce it by 50%. Instead, I had to use their market risk explorer, which to me is kind of magic. You're looking at it and you're like, it's magic. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's go back here. Reduced vacations. Obviously, I kept my Wildwood vacation in there at $350 a month. I could drop that too if things got really bad. And then I had to have a healthcare. So I have healthcare at $2,000 a month. That's based on the ACA subsidies and stuff. I said, listen, I could probably go on like a little lesser of a plan for $1,500 a month if I was in trouble. And then here's my extra vacation. It goes from this to zero. Okay, so what's the same? And then what I did is I took all these numbers and I actually put them into Boldin in my must have. Okay, so now what I did is I essentially said, take this, multiply this by 12 and give me a total. So my run and lean, granted, if I was really desperate, I could probably go leaner on this. Oh, and my emergency stuff, my house emergency stuff went down to zero, where I would normally put away 700 a month in there. I thought, what good's an emergency if I'm in trouble financially? Okay, so that means if I'm just doing a safe sanity check on this thing, it's 88,500 per year. The thing that kills me, this really kills me, because I was watching some other YouTube a couple days ago. What kills me the most is this. Property taxes just suck. It's like no matter what I do, I got a 14,000, no matter 14,400 a year expense, no matter how, and it's an expense I can't do anything about. So that really is frustrating. I guess that's why people downsize, but Jersey's pretty expensive no matter what. So anyhow, what I wanted to do is say, listen, now that I know kind of what my yearly expenses are, if I were to just do a sanity check, how much do I have? So what I did is I said, listen, I'm assuming, and like I said, you can play with this a million different ways, but this is just a sanity check that once I get my 50% drop, I get a 3% return on stuff. So that could even mean, hey, over 3 years I lose 50%, over 2 years I lose 50%, but I'm kind of thinking once I lose 50%, what's a reasonable income? I got 3%, not 3% still sucks, but what's my 3%? And that's what I multiplied this my per year income. So that's, and then what I did down here is it said my total my wife has a pension for $2,100 a month. She has Social Security for $1,679 a month. I'm assuming I'm still not going to collect. If we get really bad times at 70, I could collect mine too. But for now, I'm just kind of looking at a short term, what would happen if we got in trouble in the next like couple of 2, 3 years. So that gives me $85,000, 549. Now, clearly that's not taxes. So, but what it does show me, and we're going to get into Boldin in a second, is it shows me that I'm in the ballpark, right? It shows me that, listen, if I trim down, if I trim the fat and I get to 88.5, it looks like at 3%, even after a loss of 50%, I can clear, and an assumption of a 3% um, return on my investments per year, I can kind of clear. Like $3,000 isn't going to break the bank. Now there's taxes in there too. It's probably another few $1,000s. Um, so that's good. So this is the sanity check. The sanity check says I'm in the range, and what can I do? Now, the real detailed thing is using Boldin. So I Boldin on the other side here. The first thing I did is I went into my expenses. Well, actually, the first thing I did is I changed my assumptions. So I can't really do this because my picture's up here. Maybe I can. Let's see here. I changed. Oh shoot. Well, you can do this. I don't have to show you this. I changed my oh, and this is shrinked. It does weird things. I changed this from screw it. I'll make it easier for you guys. I changed this to must spend. And obviously I changed all my must spend numbers to match what you saw in the spreadsheet. All right. So once I did that, I went down to their market risk explorer. I mean, you guys can do all this too. I'm just kind of showing what I did. And I started playing around with it. So I said, hey, when does the market drop begin? So let's just say it began now, or in a few months, March of 2025. That's beyond now. So let's just say November. Yeah, there we go. November of 2025. So what I did was I said, well, what would happen if I did 1 year and I had a 50% drop? Oh, it won't let me do more than 50, even though it's 1 year. I don't quite get that. And you'll see with this green line, and it tells you right here, it says, hey, based on your custom downturn, chance of success would still be 99. So that's good. I mean, you can see here the green line, how my savings balances are taking a hit. My regular savings is 2 million with new projections in the market risk on 1.6. You see it declines, which kind of matches, right? Because I said I was like a few grand short. So it kind of trucks low, and then I sell my house because my house isn't in my liquid assets, and bang, I'm back up to 1.79 million because my ridiculous house sold for a ridiculous amount of money. But you can see that's where I'm at. Now, if I really want to emulate 50%, what I did is I said, let's do 2 years, 25% drop every year. And you see there's the first year drop, second year drop, and then I get that same turn, except for I have a little more here. So if we just start looking at, hey, what if this would be rough. I mean, I got to tell you, mentally, this would be really rough. If I lost 25% a year for 3 years in a row, and then 3%. Oh no, this probably gives me better than 3% rate of returns, but I'll tell you, it doesn't look like a very good rate of return. 333, 324. So I don't know. I don't know that's what I don't like about this. It's not really telling me all that much. Like I said, maybe if I really wanted to do this, I could disconnect my accounts from Boldin and then just take a huge market hit. But that would just be emulating what I did with 1 year. But you see, that's okay. I mean, I think all of us got to ask ourselves that question. Like, mentally, where are you going to be if you take a 50% hit in 3 years? And the funny thing is, so I have YouTube envy sometimes, and I see it seems like these channels that say, "Hey, live on less than 500,000 a year in your savings," gets a lot of hits, and sad to say, I can totally see why, because there's probably a lot of people that don't have. That's what they have. Um, the reality is, in some ways, those people, to some extent, may be able to endure a downturn more often because it seems like they really live like that. Like they seem to live at a pretty low level. But then again, they may be a hurting unit because if you go from 500 to 250, you could be in real trouble. And I don't know. I hope they're using planners because to be honest with you, I don't. Most of the ones that I see that are doing the 500 thing, they never talk about using a tool. All they do is they say, here's what I made on my returns. Here's a lot of them have gotten extra YouTube revenue. Here's what I got from my YouTube. Here's what I got from my investments. Here's what I'm spending. Now, I will tell you this a fair amount of those people, I only watch three of them, seem to live on like some pensions and they seem to run really lean and mean. So who knows? Maybe they'd be fine in a downturn. It'd be more of a mental thing for them. But I don't know. Like I think you should be putting this. Like you should be going into this market risk explorer and starting to see how your plan would handle this kind of stuff. Because this it was great. Like this guy was really cool. He said a lot of people, especially I think our generation, like I will tell you truthfully, I have forgotten what it's like to take a massive downturn. Like I said, COVID wasn't long, and then COVID bounced back so much after COVID that I think I've kind of forgotten some of the bad times because the good times, the markets just went up crazy. And Lord knows that in the last, since January, I feel like the markets have crushed it too. Well, they have. So I'm in a very optimistic sort of way. I'm in a, not a New York state of mind, but I'm in an optimistic state of mind. So just showing you this, it can be brutal. I mean, I was in here at one point and some of these numbers weren't looking so good. I don't remember what it was. Oh, I think it was because I was on my optimistic spend. And it was scary because I'm like, oh my gosh, I did some percent drops and I was going down like 20% chance of success. And that more than anything, it would probably just mess with me mentally. Like I said, these less than 500,000 in asset people probably would handle downturns a lot better than me because I have a feeling they're running a lot leaner to start with. But anyhow, I thought it was a good video to make. This guy made me think of it, so I went out and did it. You know, you can play around with these other things. You know, they had something like a decade of bad returns. You know, and you can see I'm still at a 99% chance of success. Um, you know, 3 year secrets of bad returns. I don't know if I go into my must spend mode, things go pretty well for me. Um, but like I said, I think you got to stress test. You just have to. I mean, you know, especially before you retire. I think when you get that retirement in sight, you want to do it so bad that you can taste it. I did, but you really got to stress test. So go for it. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate everyone. I appreciate all my viewers. You guys are great. I hope I make you think of stuff. I hope you make you get in there and go do it yourself. So take care. Thanks again for watching.